I think Russia still stands out as one of the most solid, stable emerging market countries. Obviously, there are lots of other countries in the world that have problems at the moment, which some would argue actually have a much bigger in terms of significance. You've got Brazil. If you look at the BRIC countries, in fact, you look at Brazil. Brazil's blown up with corruption. China's slowed down in growth. India's actually doing really well, but the problem with India is the spreads there. I mean, bonds are trading at 110 cents on the dollar in India, so the yields aren't particularly attractive there. Russia kind of falls somewhere in between the cracks. But actually, having made about 26% in 2015, we have seen a massive correction in valuations. Living in a sanctioned environment is obviously one of the other challenges, but I think the Russians have basically proved that they can actually control that. We've now been in sanctions for over a year. We've been in lower oil, lower commodities for over a year, and actually the fundamentals still look pretty strong for Russia. Well, it's all really about oil. If you draw a graph of oil and draw a graph of the ruble, they're pretty much exactly the same charts. And I think the problem is with 50% of government revenues coming from the oil sector, oil really is a massive importance to the economy. I think with oil down where it is, I mean, some people suggest that it can go even lower. We think probably will do a little bit, but at some point, after such a correction that we've already seen in oil, marginal producers will struggle to make money in this environment. So we do think the longer term, medium term outlook for oil is better. And provided that the Russian corporate sector can maintain its liquidity during that period, then we think we should see some positive return to decent performance. I think the biggest one is obviously the sanctions, and I think if you look at the biggest, most largely exposed sectors, so metals and mining and oil and gas, these are the companies that really are most exposed to sanction risk. But for Russia, most of these companies are exporters, so they export most of their goods. They get dollar revenues, which means that a devaluation in the currency is positive for them. And also the fact that these companies have actually deleveraged, which isn't great news for us as investors, because every time a steel company pays its bonds back, we get cash into our account, we lose our bonds, and then we have to find something else to buy with our dollars. So effectively, we love the Russian buyback story. We don't particularly like it as investors. But what it does mean, though, is that we're seeing deleveraging, which means the corporate sector is actually fundamentally even stronger than it was this time last year. Unfortunately not. I don't think so. I'd like to think so. I mean, we've certainly got appetite for decent quality corporates, but at the same time, the general feel in emerging markets, well, unfortunately not much love for EM at the moment. The general slowdown in growth, the oil picture, sanctions aren't really going to get lifted anytime soon, well, we don't think so anyway. So we think that basically, we're not going to see a massive return to new issuance. But also, even if sanctions are reversed, we don't think that's going to open the doors to massive issuance, because we think that the market's actually adjusted to living with sanctions. I think the fundamental picture on diversification away from commodity sectors. I think that it would be nice to see a coherent policy on foreign policy. It would be nice that Mr. Putin, if he improved his image with the foreign investors, but I mean that goes both ways. I mean we have the same issue coming from the US and the West, but we'd like to see more central bank governance. I mean, comparing it to Turkey, the Turkish central bank's a lot stronger in terms of how it governs the banking sector. We think there needs to be a lot more consolidation in that area, and stronger supervision. But ultimately, I think they are getting their game together. But I think more work's needed on those things.